Hedera, again, it's our title sponsor. Hedera has actually supported a lot of these events, so I'm very grateful for that, Charles. And before we get started with the questions, I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience here and just talk about your journey in Web3.
Yeah, so I'm Charles Adkins, the current president at Hedera. My background is actually in traditional finance and econ, Morgan Stanley for 6 years, U.S. Department of Treasury for 3, built 2 startups in between, and then ended up learning about cryptocurrency. So I say that with a dark tone because once you're in it, you can't get out. I was one of the original enterprise VPs at Polygon, then moved on to do business development at Aptos Labs, which was spun out of Meta and Facebook. Originally was the DM chain LibraCoin. And then as of January, started as president at Hedera. But I've known about Hedera for probably 6 years since they went to mainnet. I've always been interested in the math. I've shown the white paper to a lot of people, and actually had a friend of mine at MIT say, we have E equals MC squared, and then this paper is pretty close with the math. So that intrigued me, obviously. So I've always kept track, kept in touch, and then got that phone call. And it's a hard one to say no to.
So just for context, guys, the founders of Hedera, Lehman and Dr. Lehman Baird and Dr. Mans Harman, they set out to solve the blockchain trilemma problem. So folks who are OGs in the blockchain space, you've probably heard about the trilemma problem, which says that out of 3 parameters, security, scalability, speed, you're able to at any time just work on 2, and you always compromise on the 3rd one. But with the introduction of hash graph, which is patented, but the patent is open to the public, so anyone can go and build on top of the hash graph algorithm, they solved for all 3 of these problems. So it was a fun mathematical exercise in the house. And you just spoke about how long you've known Hedera, and the mainnet launch was just about 5 years ago. In fact, next month in September, we are going to complete 5 years. So a very exciting landmark. And I would love to hear from you that as we approach this 5-year milestone, what are the plans for Hedera's future? Which are the areas in which you would see Hedera dominate?
I think one of the things we're seeing, obviously, we have our governing council, which is a lot of the companies and big logos that you saw. They typically want to focus on world-changing problems. And so those are the kind of things that we really want to focus on, is thinking about those mega trends moving into the future. Are we going to have, resource shortages? How do we track these? How do we verify data in the future? How do we give provenance and version control to AI? There's so many really exciting things happening in technology, all coming together with AI, with DLTs, quantum computing, 5G moving into 6G, IoT devices connected everywhere. And people think about scalability and the idea of, we have X amount of wallets on our blockchain. Well, now you start thinking about actually each one of those IoT devices out there will eventually have their own verified wallets. And you will need to verify that data coming from those devices are actually true and real as well. And so, kind of fighting back against deep fakes, AI issues, ethics. The unbanked, underbanked is a big thing. We've been through the cycle of DeFi where it's like we've got a cat riding a donkey to the moon coin, and that's DeFi, and it gives you 50% yield a day. Like we're kind of getting out of that.
Even 5,000 at times.
Not financial advice. But now we're actually thinking about DeFi and the scale of how do we serve underbanked, unbanked developing countries and they've gone through this cycle before. I mean, Africa is a prime example of that, where they went from no telephony, skipped landlines, went straight to mobile. We're starting to see that with banking. No access to banking at all. Skip traditional banking altogether, but they have a wallet on their phone, and they're just transacting. So these larger global problems, we really, really want to start tackling these.
Hedera is also famously working on decentralized recovery, and decentralized recovery is also going to be functioning offline. So that's also an interesting use case, because as we spoke about Africa, the poorest continent on earth, but it has the highest rates for data plans. So those are some great challenges that are being tackled. But that being said, over the past 5 years, what are a couple of the most valuable lessons that Hedera has learned, that we have learned along the way?
I think one of the interesting ones early on is we focused so much on enterprise that we missed a little bit of the retail cycle. Just knowing that we had, a token out there, it's something you do have to pay attention to, even though we consider ourselves a utility token that's more along the lines of a commodity, because typically when people own the token, they're using it to power some kind of a dApp that they've built. But that led us to actually miss out on a lot of bridge integrations. When I came in as president, there's about 13, 14 key integrations and bridges that Hedera hadn't even started talking about yet. So for me, on the retail side, and when it comes to adoption as a chain for the general day-to-day consumer, I mean, we're really just at the starting line. We're really just now getting those online as of this summer. We're not even getting our Chainlink integration until Q4. And this is something that's been around, we just never focused on it. We were like, how do we build for all of these enterprises? And, now we're playing a little catch up on the retail side.
Well, as a community member, but we are big time into Hedera, definitely excites me. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of the people who are also watching this on the live stream, they probably echo the same sentiment. That being said, Charles, congratulations on completing your 1-year anniversary as the president of Hedera. Almost there. Almost there. I would love to know that now that you have this position, right? You're the president of Hedera, and after you came in, there was a lot of shakeup happening in the community, a lot more communication with you, which I love. A lot of the community members feel like, oh, they now have a direct line to someone higher up in Hedera, and that's you. And I would love to really ask you that in this particular leadership position, what is your vision that you have for Hedera? What are your goals? And in the near future, in the next couple of years, what particular changes, what kind of ambitious roadmaps we can see under your leadership and guidance?
Yeah, I think one piece of clarity that I always like to add is just because of the decentralized nature, there's a lot of things I can partially influence. There's a lot of things I can't control at all. So when it comes to,
maybe you might want to just touch upon the decentralized nature quickly, because a lot of folks here, I'd love to do this exercise. By the way, guys in the audience, how many of you know about Hedera already? Okay, all right. So it's about 20%, 25% people in the room. So for the remaining 75%, maybe you can quickly touch upon the decentralized nature of Hedera.
Yeah, so we essentially govern our network with what we call the governing council, which has up to 39 seats. Typically, we place those of companies that have over 1 billion annual revenue. We actually get with those leaders in those organizations, ask them what they'd like to see in the future of decentralized ledger technology. And we really take their input seriously, and I think that's why we lean so heavily enterprise early on. And we have foundations that also support ecosystem developers. So we do have the HBAR Foundation, we have the Hashgraph Association based out of Switzerland, and then we have DLT Science Foundation, which is housed at University College London. And they really focus on deep research. We think about them kind of in 10-year time horizons on the kind of stuff they're working on. They're also cross-chain. They're not specific to Hedera. They work on several other chains as well. So I think, our decentralized nature is each of those organizations actually act independently through endowments from us. So they have their own board. They have their own executive team. I can say a lot of things. I can try to influence a lot of things, but I can't ever directly tell them this is what you must be doing. And we think that's very important when we think about how to decentralize information, use cases. It really keeps influence to a single point very low. And that's why we chose 39 council members as well, because we're not going to have one kind of overweighted large organization. We already have large organizations in there, but we're not going to have one person basically taking all the air out of the room and have the network just run specifically to what that business wants.
So I understand that you don't have the influence over everyone, but let me ask you, what is your vision, right? What would you, in an ideal world, love to see happen, and what would you try to influence?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now one of the things that we're really trying to influence a lot is kind of doing a lot of catch up on the retail side, doing a lot of catch up on the retail marketing side, focusing on what we're actually great at is when we connect to AI, connect to tokenization, anything that involves a non-linear blockchain. So the way we kind of think about things is if you have a blockchain that settles linearly in blocks and you don't know if you're in the front of the block or the rear of the block when that settles, when we go into quantum computing and things that move faster, the potential for hacking and front-running financial transactions goes up exponentially.
Absolutely.
So with Hashgraph, when you're not actually settling in a linear block and every transaction settles on its own instantly, you really take financial services, healthcare data, you take a lot of this stuff and kind of supercharge it. So for me, I really want those use cases to work. I really want to see regulation be a lot more favorable in the US. We have an incredible chief policy officer, Nilmani Rubin, lives in DC, works on this nonstop. If we can start getting some of those things moving, our council members can start feeling more comfortable building on the network. I would say a lot of large organizations are a little uncomfortable to hold any type of cryptocurrency right now, even if it is a utility token.
Absolutely.
So once we get through some of those regulatory issues, I think we'll be good to go. I mean, for me, I would love to see everybody using the network. My kind of mantra is, as a developer, whether you're a developer at an enterprise, whether you're an individual person building a startup, come and build something on the network. I mean, I really want to focus on getting developers into the network and testing things.
Absolutely. So again, not to bring politics into this, but I think one of the most conversed conversations about Bitcoin in Nashville was when Trump went up on stage and he said if he was to become the president again, he'd free Ross. And Ross was the founder of Silk Route, the infamous application which unfortunately got him sent to jail. And I think after that, he got a much louder cheer when he said that he'll also fire Gary Gensler. So I don't know whether that's happening or not, but yes, I absolutely concur with the point that we definitely need more people actually regulating crypto and not trying to shut it down. It's a $2 trillion plus industry. It's not going anywhere. The sooner people accept it, the faster we can move. That being said, a lot of the L1s that we see coming up now, or even in the past couple of years, they have actually carved themselves some niches. So we have chains that say, hey, we are meant to be the trader's chain. We'll have, really fast transaction speeds for trading. Simultaneous trades can be executed. We have parallelization. You'll have chains that say we are meant for gamers. We have all of these cool features that make it a cool chain from gaming. And Hedera, as you also mentioned earlier, has been known for enterprise. Now, I would love to ask you that in the next 5 to 10 years, what do you think Hedera will stand for? A couple of sectors that you think would really be the ones that when people hear about those, they would think about Hedera.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things is we're having conversations, and we've actually had other L1s reach out to us and say that they've built specific products on their chain, and then later come to find out it doesn't scale well, or that it doesn't have the security features that they had hoped to have, or speed and scalability that they need, to the point where there's some chains out there asking if they can actually lodge and build their products on Hedera now, which we're finding really interesting. I think, there's probably a lot of us in this room that have been through several technology cycles. Like I started mid-90s really with technology in the financial sector. And I would say, I could even go back to the 1920s and say we've seen this all before with automobiles. I mean, when automobiles first came out, 629 different brands, one was a race car, one was for luxury, one was for durability, like everybody was different. And what happened was you ended up getting people that started standardizing. Same thing happened with browsers, the internet. Everybody wanted their own, their own email domain. Everybody wanted their own version of a browser. And then eventually you have HTTP. So we're starting to get into that space with blockchain L1s in particular, where a lot of us are starting to talk to each other and think about, what is the standardization? And from a technical standpoint, what happens when you actually need to combine or merge token supplies? Like conversations about M&A and standardization in the industry are starting to happen. And so I do think, we're going to move away from this very this is for gaming, this is for that. We're going to get into more of a standardized use case, or I'm sorry, like just an industry standard that everybody can start to run on. And hopefully when people have their own tokens within their wallet, you go to a site, it's running on whatever blockchain it may need to be. It can identify that, do auto swaps in real time. It's just all going to be in the background, just like the internet. I mean, those things need to be in the background because when we start talking about data provenance of AI and IoT devices, there's nobody that's going to be able to manually go in and look at every single one of those transactions. So I think next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a lot of industry standardization and a lot of M&A activity.
I do think so. I believe we have like over 1,000 L1s right now, maybe. So I think consolidation would be happening sometime soon. All right. So as we look towards the horizon, let's say towards the end of 2025, over the next a year and a half, I would love to hear from you that what are some of the major milestones or news that we could use for insider trading? No, I'm kidding. But what are some of the major milestones that the builders, the developers, the investors can look forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, even though we are open source, we're going even deeper on that journey. I won't, completely spill the beans on that, but we're going, a lot further with our open source efforts coming up very shortly. I would say, other than that, keep an eye on just really getting a lot more of the integration standards into play. So you're going to see a lot of those types of announcements, a lot of bridges, custodians, a lot of those things that we need to actually power tokenization and be productive on the retail side, be productive for institutional investors. We need to get that stuff onboarded quickly. We're in the process of doing a lot of that now. I would say in general, we just want to make it a lot easier for developers. We have gotten feedback before that people will say, like, sometimes it's difficult to actually use the code. So we just want to make that very simple, very standardized, where anyone can come on and really, really build their business. That's kind of the focus, is we want people to come on. If they say, I want to build a business, it needs a DLT, it needs a blockchain. Hedera is a couple clicks, easy to use. I know it's secure, I know it's fast, I know you can't tamper with it. Make it easy.
Got it. For all the builders in the room who are thinking about building on Hedera, by the way, if you have never built on chain, then Hedera supports JavaScript development. The SDK is really easy to use. But also, if you are already a Solidity developer, this Hedera smart contracts engine also uses Solidity. So it really makes that movement easy. We have a couple of more minutes to actually take questions, maybe like 2 questions from the audience. I want to throw it out to the audience. Anybody has a question? Do you want to just come up here in front so I can give you the microphone too?
I wasn't supposed to take questions with an audience that's 10 times smarter than me.
It's definitely not me. It's great to meet you. I've actually been in the Hedera community for about the past year. Wondering if there's a roadmap for public nodes. And I know I come from the solar industry. We're excited about potentially integrating some data provenance on Hedera and that. So we'd love to hear about that.
It is on the roadmap. I will say that there's a couple dependencies that need to come before that. Some of that being just like node management tools need to be in place first. The other is that from an economic standpoint, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for people to run a node today. Typically, consensus node, depending on what I don't know, the exact pricing is quite a bit more than the rewards that you would earn, because our fixed pricing obviously is 0.001 cent per transaction. I mean, you would have to just to cover the costs of running a node. It's just somebody would have to do that out of an effort of love, because right now the way the economics are set up, it's more expensive to run the node than if you're just doing consensus. You'd want to do smart contracts, tokens, all of that. But once we get some of those dependencies out of the way, or node management tools and things like that, it's always been on the roadmap. Sharding's always been on the roadmap. There's a lot of things, like I said, we're just now kind of testing out. And I mean, once we get to that point where we shard, have community nodes, I don't even want to take a guess at what our transactions actually could get to. I mean, that would be pretty high speculation. But I mean, if we're doing what we're doing now with, permission nodes and no sharding, it could be pretty ridiculous. I'm sure. Yeah.
Thank you, Noah. Thanks, Charles. One more question before we wrap up this session. Anyone has a question? All right. Okay. So Charles may not be there during the networking session, but we have Aline back there. Aline, if you can just wave your hand. So she's also from Hedera. So if you have any more questions about Hedera, please feel to reach out to her during networking. So with that, Charles, thank you for your time. But before we leave, do you have any closing remarks for our lovely audience here?
Yeah, thank you all for coming out. This is a very full room, people standing. Thanks for the invite. You can also find me on LinkedIn pretty easy. I've gotten off Twitter a little bit. People are pretty aggressive on there. So with every token move, a new death threat comes. So I try to stick to LinkedIn these days.
All right, thank you guys. Give it up for Charles and also for me. Thank you.
I'm Aaliyah. I run the accelerator programs at Draper University. Draper University was founded by Tim Draper all the way back in 2012. He founded it with the idea, the mission to inspire, educate entrepreneurs, early stage specifically. We have a lot of different types of programs, agnostic, so exploring different industries, but recently, we started having some Web3 accelerators. So we have a few programs coming up. If you are a founder and you're interested in learning more about those programs, come find me after this. And if you're not a founder but you still want to learn more, I'm also happy to chat with you. So that's a little bit about Draper and what we're doing, but I'm really excited about this panel. I would love to, can I invite them up now? Okay, yeah, I would love to invite up Michael Heinrich from Zero Gravity and Miko from Gumi, right? Is it Gumi? Gumi, okay, sorry, I knew I was going to pronounce that wrong, but yeah, welcome up to the stage. And unfortunately, Kenneth couldn't be here. He just messaged us today saying that he was sick, so it's just going to be us three up here. But yeah, I'm really excited to talk about, yeah, good? Okay, to talk about the intersection of Web3 and AI. I'm gonna go ahead and have a seat.
Thank you.
Hi guys.
Hello.
Michael, this is so funny because yesterday you were just you were just at Draper University, and we did a fireside chat. So if I repeat some questions for you, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
But I'm really excited because today specifically we'll be talking about the intersection of Web3 and AI. And Miko, this is my first time meeting you. So I'm also super excited to learn a little bit more about what you're doing at Gumi, right? Okay, there we go. But before we get started, why don't you guys just quickly give a short introduction, who you are, what your companies do. Yeah, Michael, you want to go first?
Yeah, really excited to be here. Thanks for the invite. And so I'm Michael. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Zero Gravity, or Zero G for short. We're the fastest modular AI chain. So essentially, we enable fully on-chain AI through our infrastructure. And we started at the data layer with storage, with data availability, and now we're moving into the execution layer as we are going to be releasing a serving framework for inference and fine-tuning and so on pretty soon. A little bit about my background. I started on the engineering side at SAP Labs and Microsoft, and then went further and further to the business side, first becoming a technical product manager in the Visual Studio Group. And then I started moving over to Bain & Company, spent a couple of years there consulting Fortune 500 tech and finance companies. After that, worked for Bridgewater Associates. I was on the portfolio construction side. I saw about 60 billion in trades on a daily basis. Pretty fun experience. Then I went back to graduate school at Stanford and started my first Web2 company, a company called Garten. It was a B2B well-being company that basically scaled to unicorn status. We did about 100 million in contracted ARR. We're about 650 people and top YC company at its height. And then about a couple of years ago, one of my classmates from Stanford called me Thomas Yao, and he said, hey, we've been investing in a number of Web3 deals together. I know you've been wanting to do something in this space. I've invested in Conflux 5 years ago, and Fun and Ming, two of the co-founders, are some of the best engineers I've ever backed. They want to start something more on a global scale. And I said, let's meet up. 6 months of co-founder dating later, I was like, wow, I have to start something with these guys. They're like the best engineers I've ever worked with. And then moved to a board chair role at Gartner, and then started Zero Gravity in May of last year.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, Miko, your turn. Go ahead.
Yeah, so terrific. So in terms of VCs at the intersection, I guess what I would say is that I do actually have an AI background. So I have a master's degree in neuroscience from Yale University. In 1990, I was building my first neural networks. I built a 33 parameter neural network, not 33 billion, 33 parameters. And, this was a Rumelhart and Hinton class backpropagation network based on the, 1986 paper. So, I definitely have been doing it for a while. I'm currently actively getting excited about being hands-on. So I'm building agentic and RAG systems at home. So, it's definitely, I'm getting into cosine similarity and vector embedding. So I'm definitely personally geeking out a lot. So it's an incredibly fun time to be alive and working on this intersection. So for my day job, I'm not actually, so the funny part is I've merged my vocation with my avocation. So I'm a sitting partner with Gumi Crypto's Capital, which is a venture fund that, has invested in some of the best Web3 founders that you'll ever meet. For example, like Devin Finzer and Alex Atala, who founded OpenSea. So we did a seed stage investment into OpenSea. We did early stage into 1inch, the DEX aggregator. We did Yield Guild games. So we were one of the very first checks into Gabby Dizan's play to earn gaming guild. And we invested in Michael Heinrich and Zero Gravity. So we're super excited about this. World-class founders. So in terms of my hands-on building, I'm actually building essentially utilities to do my job better. So, I actually think that large-scale retrieval augmented generation can replace, at the very least, analysts. And one of the things that's interesting is that I'm less interested in the commoditization of reasoning. I'm actually more interested in the commoditization of attention and discernment, right? Which is why I really got into vectorization, because I think discernment is really key. Because really what I want these things to do is I want them to manage the venture upper funnel. So I want them to ingest thousands of pitch decks, and I also want them to point out inconsistencies in data that I attend to. So for example, I want them to point out things like, this deck is inconsistent with your thesis in this area, right? So you've told me your thesis, and now this deck is inconsistent with that thesis. What do you want to do about it? Do you want to fix the thesis, or do you want to reject the pitch, right? So it isn't about the thing making decisions for me. It's really about the thing helping to draw my attention, because the thing that happens in VC is that you have an insane amount of money and you have an insanely little amount of time, right? So if you can actually kind of make your attention distribute up the funnel through thousands of agentic bots, then your life gets better. So that's what I'm building.
I love it. Okay, thank you. That was really good background, and we're gonna stay on you for a second. So there's a lot of founders here in the crowd. I'm assuming I'm seeing some nods. Yeah. Okay. And you are an investor. You're an early stage investor in Web3. We've established this. I'm really curious, since this is a discussion around AI, and you are kind of an expert in AI. What are you seeing in the Web3 investment landscape of how AI is kind of transforming just the industry in general? Like, what are some of the trends, some of the things you're seeing there?
Yes.
Making
So,
sure it's out there.
so to me, like, I guess Peter Thiel put it a good way, although I don't agree with him on almost most things. But he actually, the way he said it, I didn't like, which is he said that essentially that crypto was libertarian, which I think in his mind means good, and that AI is communist, which I think in his mind means evil, right? So I think that was his mindset, right? But to me, like, I do think that AI tends to drive the direction of centralization of data, the centralization of compute, and the centralization of power, right? Because data and compute are power, because they represent things like intelligence and attention, so to me, I do want to say that I won't say that data is the new oil. I think that's a really stupid mindset, which is I think if you're Facebook and you have Michael's data, you can get like $100 off of it. And if you have my data, you can get $100 off of it. And so in Facebook's view, data is oil, which means that it's fungible, right? But it isn't so, right? Like if you really study the history of cryptography, a single bit that tells you that a general is going to be at a specific location can change the fate of an entire nation, right? So the value of data is not fungible. Like that 1 or 0 is different from another 1 or 0. And so I guess what I'm saying is data is not oil. But what I do want to say is that, if you frame it in this way, then I feel like the future has to have a way for. So AI is the technology that says maybe. It says maybe, right? Which is, in general, it's using statistical mechanics to kind of ascertain the truth or falsity of something, right? So it looks at something and says, so for example, the weird thing about AI is that AI has the potential to say maybe to questions that are ethical in nature. So for example, can I just take this data? Can I take this data? Maybe. So the answer is maybe, right? And so it takes the data, right? And then it reads the data. And so did it get permission? No. But it's just scraping data because the answer is maybe, right? Cryptography is the technology that just says no. And in fact, not only does it say no, but it enforces no, right? So when you think about individual sovereignty, you think about rights, and you think about this idea of building a more utopian future, it's necessary that we have cryptographic infrastructure to support these futures of consent and these futures of human sovereignty.
Michael, what do you think of that? You're kind of laughing, nodding along here.
It's always fun to be on a panel with Miko because we get really deep very quickly. So this is.
I know, I was not expecting.
So
how do I respond to that?
It's a big joy to do this, of course. So the key question, just to repeat it, is Web3 and AI intersection, why it matters, and where it's going.
Yeah, and just like what are you seeing there? Yeah.
It's I would say on the Web3 side, it's a burgeoning space. People are still trying to figure out what can it actually do. So, for example, a bunch of companies will start building things like decentralized training without answering the question like, what is the actual value proposition? Why do we need this? And so I feel there is a little bit of kind of this base first principles thinking that's missing, which is where can AI influence Web3 and where can Web3 definitely influence AI? What's the value proposition? Why does it matter? Is it a unique insight? Is it plausible from a technology perspective? And then should we actually go and build this? So what I'm seeing is there's a ton of projects just getting built without kind of answering some of those base level questions, which in and of itself is not bad. There's no value statement from me around it. It just means there's a ton of experimentation. And that's what drew me to Web3 as well, which is there's this explosion of creativity. Let's just try a bunch of things, build some really cool technology, get it funded, and then see if it works. And so nothing wrong with it. But I do think some of that first principles thinking is missing.
I'll say the bad things.
All right.
So to me, like, I have this concept that I call artificial stupidity, right? Which is, so for example, how do AI, so there was a huge debate on Twitter of whether LLMs could be creative, right? Truly creative, right? In the sense of coming up with stuff that just never was thought of before, right? And my issue with that entire argument is it's pointless. And the reason why I think the argument is pointless is we already have systems that are creative, that are artificial, right? And the mechanism they use is what I call artificial stupidity, which is if you send 10,000 bots and they just randomly do stupid things, right? If they just do them patiently and massively in parallel in simulation, they're going to find solutions that nobody ever thought of, because all you're doing is you're just saying, did this stupidity answer the solution? Did this stupidity answer the solution, right? And suddenly one of them stumbles in. Right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying though is it's fine for machines to do this because machines commoditize patience and attention. Mm-hmm. I think it's terrible that humans are doing this. Humans should not do this. Humans should not be experimenting randomly. Like I just, it's really bad. So that's my judgment. So I'm going to make a pejorative judgment against people who are kind of doing random mashups of AI and blockchain. It just feels capital inefficient. Is what I'm saying. Is like, I would like them to do things that are useful to people because it will serve them better and it'll serve people better. And otherwise, they're just using energy in a fruitless way.
I'll provide a little more positive counterpoint to that.
Just to be mean.
just to exactly for the meme, which is that this makes sense in a world where we can with 100% predict what the future is going to be like. But sometimes I think we do need that experimentation in order to come up with results that we didn't think were possible. And a bad initial idea may end up becoming brilliant just by kind of not having past dependence.
So I do want to say that Juan Benet from Filecoin and Protocol Labs is really thinking hard about funding things like the commons, right? And funding things like research, right? Because the weird thing about the history of research and advanced research is if you look at the birth of the internet, you have something like DARPA, right? The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, right? Which is government, right? If you look at things like space exploration, you have stuff like NASA, right? Which is now kind of partially being privatized. But like the question becomes, where is AI being invented, right? So the thing that becomes really interesting is, how do you fund things like basic research, right? And the reason why I'm so negative is I'm a VC, right? Like it's my job not to fund basic research,
of
right?
course.
So do I think basic research should be funded? I definitely do. But professionally, I'm not allowed to be like, maybe you guys will pin the tail on the donkey, have some fun.
Okay. I love. Okay, wait. You want to say something?
Well, I just say that Web3 is kind of a counterexample because you have a community, you've got retail user mindset, and then things that are research projects essentially can get a lot of traction from a community because they're really excited about what it presents. And so there's also a lot of exploration on the funding mechanism. So for example, there's a Web3 AI project called Morpheus. What they did is they essentially had a smart contract where you pay a bunch of ETH into it, and then from those emissions, they then funded the building of models. And so I thought that was pretty cool. So you've got new funding for doing research or doing actual type of projects in this space.
I do want to talk about one of the mechanisms that I'm very enamored with in Web3 for incentivization, which is basically the retro PGF mechanism that Optimism PBC are using. So they basically, what they do is they provide kind of micro seed funding. So they basically just sprinkle very small checks across a lot of random projects. And then what they do is they do retroactive funding, where if whoever did anything that was really cool or started working out, post facto, they like. So this was an attempt to replace the grant, right? Which is that the Web3 grant is probably the most ugly and abused mechanism, right? Which is that what happens is that grant applicants, it tends to favor people who are sort of greedy. Like they're like, give me the grant. And then they basically take the grant and then they go on a yacht party.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what's happening with grants, right? And so retro PGF is much more blockchain consistent. So, I'm excited about that as a funding mechanism, but it's not venture capital.
Well, there you go. Okay. So we talked, I had one question, and I love that we just talked about that for 10 minutes. I love the back and forth, like the conversational discord or discourse here.
We know each other very well, so
I
we
can
get
tell.
to do
Okay, yeah, you guys threw me off a little bit. Okay, but it is. I mean, you both are so deep in not only like Web3 but also AI, and so I think it's really interesting to hear how you guys kind of discuss the topic and go back and forth. So thanks for that. I do want to move on. I want to transition a little bit. So I do want to talk a little bit about modular AI chains, of course, with zero gravity here. Michael, can you share? Well, first talk a little bit about the modular AI chain concept, and then can you share a little bit about where you've seen this concept be successfully applied in Web3, and then also what is some potential that you're thinking about, or where do you think it holds the most potential?
Basically, what modularity is just a way for you to determine what are the basic building blocks I'm going to use to build my chain or my blockchain project. So it's kind of the contrast between a monolithic and a modular chain, essentially. So monolithic is something like Ethereum, where you basically have all the functions of a blockchain coordinated within that blockchain. So there's an execution layer, there's a consensus layer, there's a settlement layer, there's a data availability layer. And so you're basically relying on that chain to provide all of that for you. Now, the modularity concept has a benefit because there's this kind of trilemma between decentralization and performance and security. By making things modular, you can pick out components that address each one of these things in a more efficient way. So to give you an example, Ethereum is about 1 million times too expensive and too slow to do on-chain AI. So the way to fix that is we take one component, which is that data availability layer, and speed it up significantly so that you can get to speeds of like 50 gigabytes per second in throughput versus 80 kilobytes per second in throughput. And so then you can actually run some really interesting things on chain as a result. And that's a result of taking those components and hyper optimizing them. And so that's an example of a kind of successful implementation. Other successful implementations are what's known as layer 2s or layer 3s, where, for example, Ethereum is really good at being completely decentralized, but it's only doing 13 transactions a second. With layer 2s, you can then modify that. Not only can you do layer 2s that are not EVM, but let's say like the Move language, which has its advantages, or other types of languages like the Solana virtual machine, and then also significantly increase the throughput and the kind of data bandwidth that's available as well. So that's another example of a successful modular implementation.
Nice. Okay, thank you. Yeah, for anyone in here that didn't know so much about modular AI chains, I'm one of them. Thank you. That was helpful. We don't have too much time left, so we have a few minutes left. I'm going to ask one more question for Miko, and then maybe we can open it up for. Okay, yeah, we have four minutes left, so I'll ask you one more question, and then we can open it up for questions. You are an investor. You have a portfolio. Real quick before we close out, do you want to share a little bit about some companies that you've been looking at? Any companies that you're really excited about in the Web3 space that are, kind of utilizing AI as well?
Yeah. So, obviously one of the extremely exciting ones is zero gravity.
Of course.
So, it's a part of our core portfolio. To me, one of the really interesting points that I would like to make is that there's different layers and levels of the use of AI, okay, right? And to be kind of perfectly honest, like, we're definitely excited about the use of AI at all levels, right? So in other words, like, to me, if a portfolio company is not using AI, then I get concerned, right? So effectively, we're definitely seeing, because when we talk about use, right, it really has to do with what you want it to do. Because to me, the thing that's really important is that there's a famous meme in crypto, and it's basically called the mid curve, right? Where basically you have a super genius on one end of the curve, which is the right curve, and then the left curve you have like a stupid idiot, right? And the mid curve is actually the person who is The mid-curve person is actually the dumb person, right? Because what AI enables is it enables what I call LARPing, live action role playing, right? Which basically, like, I develop software every day, right? But it's LARPing. Like, I'm LARPing as a software developer.
Yeah.
I'm not a professional software developer, but AI enables me to do that, right?
Right.
So to me, that's great if you're like a stupid idiot, right? So we want to see like stupid idiots using AI, right? And we want to see ultra super geniuses using AI,
Right.
but we don't want to see mid-curve. We don't want to see mid-curve AI. Like, what do I mean by mid-curve AI? What I mean by mid-curve AI is someone with no AI background saying, I'm going to make an AI Web3 startup
Sure.
that is centered around AI, right?
But you want someone that's like stupid to.
So what I mean by
do it.
stupid is
Okay.
this. What I mean by stupid is this, right? Which is like, you know, like we have a code that is doing like accounting software.
A what
right?
software?
Accounting.
Okay.
It's accounting software.
Accounting
and
software.
You can use stable coins and like you can move them around or whatever. They're very heavy AI users. They're using AI for things like software development. They're using it for things like marketing, and they're, you know, so it's infused in their process. I think that's the left curve. Now, I don't want to insult them by saying they're kind of stupid idiots, but they're not trying to advance the field of AI.
Right.
So to me, I'm excited about the left curve, and I'm excited about the right curve. Right? You can be like a super advanced PhD super scientist, or you can be a stupid idiot who's LARPing, and like those two are awesome.
But not in the middle.
The mid curve is problematic.
Okay, I understand that. Well, thank
Don't
you so
be
much.
mid-curve.
Don't be mid. That is the lesson of today's panel.
I do want to say this is general. This is a general statement about today.
Okay.
Right? It isn't even about getting funding from me. Like, this is what the world is becoming. Is AI is going to make the world become like this, which is that, you know, like, for example, let's say you're an artist, right? There's two kinds of artists. Like, let's say you make paintings. Right, so the two kind of artists that benefit are like people like Hayao Miyazaki, who makes those anime, like he's a beautiful artist, right? Because people who are prompt engineering need to say, make my art look like that amazing artist.
Yeah.
Right. So he's extreme right curve. That's an amazing artist, right? The other beneficiary is the stupid idiot. So it's just prompting and saying, oh, make my art look like that person's art. The people who are going to get flattened are on the mid-curve. It's scary and it's not great, but that's just a fact.
That is such an interesting take. I've never heard that before.
So don't be mid-curve.
I think like that's how we're going to close it out.
By the way, the easier move for you all is to be a stupid idiot.
It's easiest to be a stupid idiot. Don't be mid.
Easier. Just LARP and be a stupid idiot. That's basically the best move.
But it's okay to have a few geniuses too.
Correct.
Okay, we're kind of out of time, but was there anyone that had like a burning question or anything? Yeah, do you wanna?
Gotcha.
What's your name?
Stupid.
I'm gonna write him a check.
Mr. Left Turn.
Yeah. So
you win.
Thank you very much. I really enjoy the dichotomy of the greatest minds playing in front of us. So the question is, I think what you're saying is that the current problem is more of a developer syndrome. I have a hammer, everything is a nail. The question for me is that, is the AI plus Web3 is all talked about at the only infrastructure layer? Do you see that, or application layer playing in that?
So far, the AI at the application layers plays that I've seen have been somewhat depressing. So that's been my experience so far.
I think there's a lot of experimentation happening at the application layer, but it's in the flavor of like, hey, chatbot, can you buy this meme coin for me, or can you do the swap for me? So I've seen stuff like that, but I think with the power of the agentic web, you'll start seeing much more interesting stuff happening. Like, what I'd love to see in a few years' time is, can you actually have a DAO that's fully autonomous, for example? Like, this particular organization exists only to do something very specific for me. I don't know what that form is yet. Maybe it's some type of governance process, and you can actually outsource specific things. Like, those would be really cool experiments at the application layer, but I don't know if they're happening just yet.
And I think we could mutate the definition of DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization, but you could potentially mutate that into a decentralized autonomous organism, right? So in a sense, you could have an organization with 0 humans, right? You could have a fully autonomous economic entity, right, that just solves the financial energy equation. It makes more money than it spends. It could live forever.
All right. Well, Miko, thank you guys so much for being here. M&Ms.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for this conversation. It was really inspiring and for me personally very educational. So yeah, round of applause for.
Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.
I know all of you are going to just be mind blown after some of this conversation today. So who do we have here? We have Sophie Choe. She is CEO of qAIntum.ai Inc. And then Martin Kirkwood, who is CEO of Estate Legend. And then Dr. Lucas Root, who is a founder and CEO of the Fractional COO. I'm going to go ahead and let each one of them introduce themselves and what they're all about. So I'll go ahead and start with you, Sophie.
Hi, my name is Sophie Choe, and I am the founder and CEO of qAIntum.ai. qAIntum.ai, we're at the forefront of quantum computing and Gen AI revolution. So we have developed the core technology for quantum neural networks. And with that, we developed quantum transformers. Now we're in the process of productizing. And then with the quantum transformers, we plan to build quantum large language models.
Wow, amazing. And Dr. Lucas Root?
Hey, everyone. Great to meet you all. Thanks for having me. I'm really, really excited about everything that's going on in the world right now. I'm so excited to see what massive tools like large language models can do for changing the way that we work and the way that we interact with each other. And one of the things that I'm seeing that's really, really powerful is people are starting to make different decisions about what their workday looks like. People are starting to show up to work on their schedule, maybe early in the morning and then late in the evening, or maybe chunk tight in the middle of the day. And these powerful large language models, these AI tools, are making it more possible for people to get more done faster, interact more effectively with their coworkers, keep track of the things that they need to do so that we can be the regular, multifaceted, interested in lots of different things people that we want to be, and continue to be effectively focused and productive in the things that are actually paying us a paycheck. Welcome to Fractional Work and the Fractional COO.
Thank you. And of course, Martin Kirkwood.
Hi there. So this is very interesting. So the effective and productive part of things. So imagine like looking for a property, and we want to make this much more effective and productive for people. I'm Martin Kirkwood, CEO of Estate Legend, which is a cutting-edge AI-driven search tool that's put into a game engine, so it makes it easier for people to find property.
Very cool. I was actually at a hackathon yesterday, and somebody came up with this tool where it was to help real estate agents work with clients to find properties that were close to what their personalities were like. So really interesting stuff. Yeah. A few people were actually at that hackathon. Yeah. So Martin, I'm going to start with you. The first question is, what are the significant benefits of integrating 3D AI technology into existing platforms, and how does it enhance user engagement?
Thank you, Ed. That's an excellent question. So the first thing is that the natural evolution of search is 3D, 4D, 5D. This is kind of interesting right now because every major platform that exists in the world is in 2D. Even some platforms that call themselves, let's just say the name begins with an M, it's 2D. And so the general idea about bringing in 3D visualization and putting it into a game engine, it allows people to have a different experience. It's a simulation. How much light do you get in? What are the predilections that people have? And how does AI, as an example, understand in some form. When I say understand, it means a lot of different things to different people, but how does it reason as to what it is that we like and what it is that we're looking for? I mean, how much time do people generally spend on looking for a property, whether it be an apartment, a house, a commercial property? Generally, it's over 4 months. 4 months of time, generally. That's on average, and a lot of people know what they're looking for. So bringing in AI, matching that with parametric architecture, matching that with a number of other different tools, the idea, what is convenience? What makes things frictionless? What makes things more effective?
How many hours over those 4 months?
On average, most people spend over 20 hours a week looking for property.
For 4 months.
For 4 months.
How much money does that mean the average person in this room is wasting of their own time?
So much money. It's almost exhaustively prohibitive to calculate that collectively. And how do we find property? We usually look for property ourselves, and we usually get either a spouse or a friend or family members involved in that. Think about how many people are actually involved in a typical transaction. Imagine if everybody can look at the same property at the same time on their own view, how tall they are, on what their personal predilections are, to figure out like what is right and wrong with the property, to make a better decision, be better informed by using real-time data either from the government or from somewhere else that we already have. The visualization tool, it's not just visualization, it's also acoustic. Real-time sound of traffic, birds, real-time weather, real-time light. This is already built.
Wow. That's that's really cool stuff. Yes. And I know we have different domains here, so we're going to switch over a little bit to the quantum space and go to Sophie. So Sophie, the question for you is, what are the primary obstacles in scaling quantum AI technologies, and what strategies are being employed to overcome them?
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about quantum computing, like we are getting into this like amazing, future, what have you. But in actuality, we don't really know what's happening in the quantum computing world. Why? Because to physicalize, just to come up with a prototype and play around with like a few qubits or something, that's been done. We're like, wow, this is so amazing. However, to use those quantum processing units to practically solve practical problems and to have algorithms do something that classical computers cannot do. Commercially, these chips are not there yet. So when we talk about quantum software, quantum algorithms, and what have you, they're all simulated on classical computers. So the more quantum computing we do, all the more money to NVIDIA. So first of all, we have to come up with stable enough quantum computers to be able to support quantum AI.
And how far do you think we are from that?
Okay, so it's not my word. The CTO of Microsoft Azure, he said we need at least 1 million qubits to solve any practical problems. IBM has 1,100 qubits. Google has 53 qubits. AWS has 20 qubits. Quantinuum, with its $1 billion, they have 34 qubits. There's another model of quantum computing using photonics on the continuous variable model. And with that, they're already functioning from Xanadu up in Canada. But even then, you can go to their website and use for like 2 to 4 hours, but you can't really solve any problems yet. So we have to solve the hardware problem first. But on the algorithm side, it doesn't prohibit for us to come up with algorithms because it's all mathematical. So
very interesting. Kind of sounds like in the realm of AI, there wasn't computers fast enough in like the 70s to do some of these mathematical problems. But once gamers needing faster processors, that's when things really started happening. So we need to get to the point for quantum computing to really see the power of it. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, great observation. Yes.
So we need quantum gaming.
Quantum what?
Gaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Quantum gamers.
I think that the real estate market might be a good starting point for that.
And Sophie, I think this is so fascinating about what you're doing because, again, the quantum gaming, we talked about quantum socialization, we talked about a number of things that are quantum. I think what Sophie is working on is so fascinating. I'd certainly love to learn more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay. So okay, let's go there. Okay, so NSF and DOE, unbeknownst to us, have been designing a blueprint for quantum internet since 2019 with like the top scientists of the world. So they're envisioning the quantum internet on top of classical internet because no matter what they say or no matter what your impression is, don't you ever think that classical computer is going away. It's never going away. So quantum computers are going to be used as application-specific hardware, just like GPUs for specific problems. So we're going to have classical computers, quantum computers, using the same fiber optical network for information transfer. And then the components are going to be quantum communications, quantum computing, quantum memory, quantum transducers, and quantum sensing. There's a whole component out there. And all of that is based on photonics. We are using photons. However, in today's quantum computing, most of the people are using like superconducting models, trapped ions, and what have you, just because they came from the idea of the need to quantize the binary system, like zeros and ones. Oh, by the way, so yeah, do you want to, Lucas, talk about that, zeros and ones? Why are we using that?
Absolutely. So let's talk about how communication over long distances started, right? If you needed to send a message over a long distance, it happened in one of two ways. Either smoke signal, and we're still using smoke signals today. When she talks about classical computing, it is literally using smoke signals. Or the marathon, in a very literal sense. Give somebody a whole bunch of water and a message and have them run to the person that you need to tell that message to. And that's exactly what the classical system is modeled on right now. It's modeled on smoke signals. All we've done is we've taken the capacity to use a smoke signal to transmit a message over a long distance, and we've made it really, really, really fast.
Yeah, amazingly fast. Yes, yes. So, when we go to the quantum realm, the hardware constraint that we had, zeros and ones, the on and off switches of the transistors, we don't need that anymore. But today's quantum computing community drag it there and try to enforce in the quantum computing, quantum mechanical world. They're having a lot of difficulty where they have to cool the temperature to near absolute zero and what have you. So I'm hoping that there's going to be an organization with all the quantum scientists and quantum physicists, quantum biologists and quantum chemists and quantum computer research community coming together, discuss about different modalities and kind of open people's ideas and minds as opposed to it being in the domain of like super highly educated and trained people and live there. So anyhow, so what if it was in Palo Alto?
That sounds amazing. Now, what about quantum community?
Yeah, I think that goes right into like my question to Ruth. You've advocated using technology to build stronger communities. How do you see AI contributing to more inclusive and climate-aware communities? And what are some of the real-world examples where this is already happening?
I was sitting over there cackling as Miko was talking about flattening the middle of the curve, because that's exactly what AI is doing. It's amazing. AI has taken the bell curve and turned it into a J curve. Literally, because there is no middle anymore. It's been flattened. It already has been done. All of the people at the bottom end and in the middle end who are using AI have exactly the same capabilities and are creating the exact same outputs. And these tools that are enabling things like epic productivity and focus and flow states, those have the exact same effect on almost everybody. Women, men, the color of your skin, your height, your capacity to interact with a computer is the only thing that matters. And it's making it necessarily inclusive, not by requirement, but by design. it's opening us up to being able to interact with each other in ways that we never even thought possible, completely by accident. It's amazing. I'm loving every bit of it.
Oh, me too. Like every minute. Yes.
I leap out of bed in the morning so excited to go play with these amazing, powerful tools that are doing such incredible things every day, partly because I can't wait to see the way that it's going to change the world tomorrow every single day. It's amazing. Also, it's exhausting.
Yeah, by the way, I have like really deep conversations with ChatGPT every day. And I'm learning about my business that way. And I'm like, wow, best conversation ever. Let's go back to it. Yes. Saves so much time. Yes.
Now I want to cycle this back to Web3 because this is what's happening in the future. We have a core question that we've been grappling with for more or less all of civilization. And that question is, do you know who you are? It's a core question, and it's been haunting every single person in this room, whether you're aware of it or not. And the idea of Web3 is that you personally own who you are, because let's all be honest, right now, today, this is what owns who you are. But here's the problem. If you own who you are, in real biology terms, that also means that the Web3 design is creating an insane you. And I mean that literally. Because whether we like it or not, every single one of us is not just defined by who we think we are, but we're also defined by who our best friends, our family, and our community think we are. The decisions that we're going to make next are not just influenced, but are defined by what's acceptable inside the community that we choose to be a part of. And in the Web3 world, we are only defined by ourselves, again, which makes us insane. However, AI doesn't recognize the individual, which makes us, ironically, they pointed out earlier today, kind of communists. And we all know that the individual to the extent and exclusion of community doesn't work. We see how this breaks down in capitalism today here in America. We also have seen how community to the exclusion of the individual doesn't work. When you bring these two absolutely extraordinary ideas and technologies, AI and Web3, together, we have the capacity, maybe, if the right people are in the room while these are coming together, if the right people are thinking about it in the right way, we have the capacity to make it possible for the individual and the community to coexist, which is the only true human model.
That's beautiful, yeah. And I think community is really what makes technology successful, and really anything that we do. It's really what drives innovation. And so I think, Mark, did you want to add something to that?
There's so much to add. I'll just continue on for the moment here with another question. Just the general idea of there's a lot of different things that are happening in this particular space.
Martin, sorry, can you get the mic a little closer to you?
Yes, I'm loving it. When we look at AI and it's built on LLMs, one of the concerns that some people have brought up recently, including people that run AI for Good and a number of other organizations around the world, is that most LLMs are built in English. And that tends to exclude a lot of definition of what metaphor is, because metaphor is fluid. And different languages have different meanings of words. We might define a chair a certain way. We might define a person a certain way. And if we're missing those languages, then we're maybe misunderstanding the human connection between each other. I always talk about how language should never be a barrier to home ownership or to travel or to a variety of other things. Anything about ourselves as an individual should not preclude us from doing anything. But what's doing that right now is the limitations on the LLMs, as well as a few other pieces of technology. So this is why I'm just loving what Dr. Root here is saying, just about how there is an opportunity to be able to define ourselves better through Web3 and AI.
Absolutely. And do you feel like some of that is also priority? They're not prioritizing language and access to some of these technologies?
Well, different right now, the Bay Area, right here where we are, in Palo Alto right now. This is the capital of AI, right? And there's different countries that are, let's just call it emerging right now with their own AI. We know that there's a few companies in Japan that have created their own LLMs in Japanese. The Saudis are doing it in Arabic. We understand that the Germans are doing it in Deutsch. There's a number of different countries that are beginning to do it, but it's lagging. And for us to understand home, for us to understand our own shelter, what does that mean for ourselves? We need to understand what other cultures, how we see things and how we feel about them. What makes us feel safe within ourselves and around us when we sleep, when we wake up, when we are with our families. What does that mean? What does community mean for each other? Not just for ourselves, but what does it mean for our kids, the people around us, the people we care about? This is all very important, so I thank you for that question. And sometimes I go to wiki languages to get more information.
Thank you.
My wife and I like to joke about mistranslating things, and one of our recent favorite jokes was trying to translate rule of thumb into Spanish. You can translate the words, but it doesn't. When you say rule of thumb in Spanish, it means nothing. It's not. Somebody would look at you and wonder why you were giving them the middle finger.
Yes, it's almost like defining the bottom of the bottle in certain countries in Spanish as well. I'll leave that alone.
Sophie, did you have something to add?
Oh no, I'm just enjoying, every single topic that you guys are talking about, especially about AI being communistic, or like all these philosophical questions about implications of how the society is changing. But in the meantime, you're thinking about people's access, but at the same time, like democratization, or what people used to be defined by other than their inner, now that's being all flattened out. That's like music to my ear. And people actually noticing that, and then trying to build a future. And then like I kind of started noticing that ever since we started using AI, I feel people started thinking way more about like how it's affecting me, but how it's affecting other people, and then what's happening like in China, or in how are they using it. So I don't know, at least for me, it just opened up my mind. I just keep thinking about other people that I don't see over somewhere beyond yonder. So it gives me way more like tight community thing. And you're talking about, I've been thinking a lot about the end of individualism, because it was necessary in Europe after, like before Industrial Revolution. We needed individualism to respect individuals from the oppression of the church. And then we came this far with that idea, with breaking down of the families and what have you. But now I think we're given the opportunity to go back and look for that community and start looking into your heart. I think like this is just amazing. I mean, yeah. Anyhow, thank you so much, Dr. Ruth, for your amazing observation. And oh my God.
This is such an amazing crowd. So we have a couple more minutes, and I just really quickly want to ask if there's something you want to leave the audience with, and then we'll go ahead and open up for audience questions. So Sophie, I'll start with you.
Thank you so much for being here, and I feel so honored, to be in your midst.
Thank you. Me too. You two have been amazing all day today, and this conversation's been awesome, and it's been really cool to have the mic in front of us while it was happening. To all of you out there, I don't know if you're like me, where you spend basically every single waking moment playing around with these amazing new tools on your computer, but may I invite you to not forget to keep reading books. And I mean that in the best way possible. Somebody who is on that end of the J curve, somebody who has become an absolute master of something and has taken 1 to 2 years to sit down with a team of editors and figure out how to distill their mastery into something that you can hold in your hand. It's not just something that should sit in a library. Like, this is the gift of the best of their years, the best of their learning, and it's available to you in a package that you can hold. Take that and treasure it and cherish it, because these masters are giving you the capacity to be an amazing human.
Beyond beyond segmentation, beyond object orientation and identification, there's person. And there's so many of us that have been building tools and platforms and marketplaces to attract attention. I'm going to echo onto this matter of, remember, there's community and there's neighbors and there's people that we see in our communities every day, wherever we get our coffee from. I make mine at home most of the time. But say hi to people. Get off the computers, get off the screens sometimes.
Okay, so thank you so much. This was amazing. Please, everybody, a round of applause.